fantastic partner with Transamerica, so we do appreciate the time with that. I'm very excited to look and talk today about our life insurance with living benefits, why this can grow your sales, and a little bit about how to sell it, a couple sales ideas and so on. So let's take a look at what's happening with consumers in the consumer market. Obviously a growing concern of chronic, critical, terminal illnesses as folks are seeing perhaps their parents in that older age group. They're seeing friends or family members maybe with a heart attack or cancer, things like that. We know, and we'll see some statistics here in just a minute about how prevalent that is here in the United States. Of course, the top of a lot of folks' mind are concerns over the health care costs. And, you know, with all the changes in health care, and that's something everyone out there probably knows a little better than I do as far as from a health care and health insurance standpoint. And finally, a growing popularity of what's termed hybrid products. So in other words, they're doing more than one thing for the insured. So they're not only providing that peace of mind death benefit, but also providing some benefit for them while they're alive, or life insurance for the living, we like to call it. So those are some of the things that, you know, your consumers and you know as you're talking to your prospects or your existing clients, your existing book of business, you're hearing these things from them. So why sell living benefit? That's a great question as to okay, well, great, it may be a great thing, but why are we talking about it? Well, it is a great opportunity to grow your sales. It does open some new markets for you. Like I said, that critical illness coverage. Folks are once again, these things are on their minds and they're thinking about them. And how do I cover, how do I protect myself now, as well as, like I said, if something were to happen and they can't come home, or, they were to pass away for whatever reason. It also opens a market with some younger clients. The living benefits marketplace is something, or products out there, is something fairly new to the market. And I say fairly new, probably Transamerica came out, I think about 2.5, let's say, somewhere in that range, 2.5 years ago, something like that. And we were one of the first ones in the market with a living benefits to our product. So it's certainly a new marketplace that some of the popular, some of the folks out there, some consumers are starting to hear a little bit more about it. It's one of those learning curve things. It comes out, and then as much as we talk about it, you all talk about it in the field, and so on. It certainly takes some time for the general public to start to understand, or at least hear about these things. So we are hearing a little bit more from the consumer field that, hey, I heard something about this, or tell me, do you know anything about this kind of a product that could provide me some coverage and benefits, not just if I pass away, but if I were to have a critical or a chronic illness situation that could provide me some benefit as well. Before I go too much further, I do want to mention, meant to mention it at the beginning, the chat box there. If you have a question as we're going along, I know everybody's on mute. If you want to type a question into that chat box, I have that up on my end. I'll keep my eye on it and try to address that as we go. Then maybe at the very end, if we have a minute, we can field a question or something. But that chat box is probably going to be the easiest way to communicate at this point. Anyways, let me continue on. I just want to get that little piece out. Let me continue on, though. It's a reason to go back to your book of business. If you have clients out there that, and I'm going to talk about a program that Transamerica does, but a reason to go back and talk about this new living benefits, even if they have term insurance or some other type of life insurance provided, or that they've purchased. This is a way to go back to them and talk about living benefits. and it's also a great way to talk to prospects. I'm sure everyone's heard that. I've already got term insurance. I bought some term insurance, whatever, 2 years, 10 years, however long ago. My immediate answer to that is, well, did you purchase the old type of term insurance or the new kind of term insurance? And of course, the response is going to be, well, what are you talking about? Term is term. And that's all we need, as you all know. All we need is that one question to open that door so that we can start to tell the story. So that old term, new term piece, I think is huge, and it's a great response. It's quick, it's easy, and then they ask the question, you can start telling your story. And it does widen your product portfolio, gives you something a little bit more than just a death benefit type product. And the great part is there's no new certification or licensing needed. As long as you have your life license, that is all that's required for this particular product. And in the living benefits world, Transamerica is one of, like I said, we were one of the first ones in the marketplace, and we're still one of the only ones with a living benefits on a term chassis or a term product, which is, of course, makes it a little more affordable from that standpoint rather than on some type of a permanent, whether it's a guaranteed UL or something, some other type of permanent type product. A term chassis brings it to the masses and a lot more affordable for all your clients. So exactly, I've mentioned this living benefit term. So maybe you're asking yourself, well, what does he mean by living benefit? Well, it's access to a portion of the death benefit from their life insurance policy for expenses related to chronic illness, critical illness, and terminal illness while the insured is alive. So it's accelerating their death benefit. But it's access to dollars when your client or the insured needs them the most. So as we see chronic illness, and we'll discuss these three a little more in depth, chronic illness is defined by, or the trigger to file a claim, is the inability to perform 2 of 6 ADLs, or activities of daily living. So you said, boy, that kind of sounds like long-term care. Well, very much. The same, usually, that's the same definition for long-term care insurance, is that inability to perform the 2 of 6. Also covered under our chronic illness is severe cognitive impairment. So we'll see statistics here, I believe, here in a moment. The cost at Alzheimer's, and we know dementia, and the issues there, and across the country, that that growing cost and so on for folks. So all that's covered under chronic illness, and chronic illness, we pay that out at 24% a year. They can accelerate up to 90% of their death benefit, but it's then paid out at a smaller portion, or 24%. Once again, looks a lot like long-term care. Typically in LTC, of course, paid out 2% a month, or in our case, 24% a year. And get to the next one, the critical illness, and I have a slide. The next slide will break down. There's 8 different triggers here under critical illness, the big 3 being cancer, heart attack, and stroke. But we will look at the very next slide, the rest of the 8 ailments or illnesses that qualify, if you will, or trigger a claim under critical illness. Finally, terminal illness protection. Terminal illness has been in the industry for a number of years. Most carriers have it on their life insurance product that's diagnosed less than 12 months to live, unless your state has some other 12 months, some have 24 months, but either way. Let's say diagnosed less than 12 months to live, they can access that death benefit early. So that piece of the living benefit is something, like I said, it's been around for quite a while. The difference here is that chronic and the critical illness that's been added and blended in all together. Of course, it is a life insurance policy, so at the end of the day, they always have that peace of mind that there's a death benefit. If the worst should happen, they still have that death benefit. And we've wrapped it up, one solution, one product, covering all these pieces to the puzzle and fitting that together in our Trendsetter LB, which we try to keep it fairly simple, LB Living Benefits product. Now, as we look at the, I wanted to get all these here on a separate slide. The critical illness, as I said, the big three that we're familiar with, heart attack, cancer, and stroke. The other five being end renal failure, major organ transplant, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, blindness from diabetes, or paralysis of 2 or more limbs. Critical illness, they can accelerate up to 90% of their death benefit, and it's paid in a lump sum. Chronic illness, 24% a year. Critical illness, paid in a lump sum. So there's a little difference there as far as how the acceleration, how the death benefit can be paid out. Of course, terminal illness is the same thing, paid out in a lump sum on the terminal illness piece of this. So once again, why living benefits? Well, like I said, folks are out there concerned about this. They have friends, family members that have perhaps had that heart attack or cancer or stroke. These are U.S. statistics. Every 34 seconds, someone has a heart attack in the United States. Every 40 seconds, a stroke. Every 30 seconds, a new case of cancer is diagnosed here in the United States. And about half of all adults have at least one chronic illness in their life. So looking at these numbers, obviously there's a large number of folks out there that are every day, every minute, almost every second, that these things are occurring, and there's coverage and need. You know, there always is going to be a need here to for dollars to help families get through these illnesses or ailments. Now, why to accelerate the benefit? As I said before, it's access to cash when your client needs it most. Now, once the claim has been approved, these dollars can be spent for really anything they want. These are just a couple things. Maybe there's health insurance coverage limits. Maybe they've already maxed out their health insurance. Maybe they have a high deductible plan. We know, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of healthcare changes, and folks have gone to these catastrophic or high deductible type plans. Unless they're sitting on $10,000, let's say, or something like that, to pay that deductible, it's another use that some of these dollars could be used for. Experimental treatments that aren't covered by health insurance. We see this a lot in cancer, and it hits very close home for me. I had a very good friend with cancer, given less than 6 months to live, and she found a holistic, after doing radiation and chemotherapy and all those things, found a holistic doctor. It was actually mega doses of vitamin C, believe it or not. She did that a couple days a week. The traditional doctors gave her less than 6 months to live. She made it almost 2 years. Now, with very small children, of a newborn at that point, those 2 years were huge for her. Luckily for her, they were able to afford these treatments, but a lot of folks can't. This would be a place that they could reach in and grab some dollars and use for maybe an experimental type treatment that's going to buy them some more time, or perhaps even cure what that ailment is, cancer, if this were in that particular situation. Accommodation needs, wheelchairs that maybe need home modifications, things like that. Maybe they just want to protect their retirement savings. Where else are they going to reach in and grab dollars? Maybe a 401k, pay penalties if they're less than 59.5, or even the tax penalties, or all the penalties that are involved with that. Here's a place to reach in and maybe grab some dollars rather than pay penalties to pull out retirement savings. Or income replacement. Severe heart attack, severe stroke, can't work for 30 days, 60 days, 90. They still have a house payment or a mortgage to pay for. They still have to put food on their table. It's a place to pull some income replacement if that's the case. The bottom line is to help them avoid financial hardship due to medical expenses. I mean, no matter what they're spending those dollars on or they need those dollars for, it's to help avoid that financial hardship. So as I said, the Transamerica Trendsetter LB, with the critical, chronic, terminal illness, those ADBs, or accelerated death benefits, are embedded in the product. It's not a rider, it's not an add-on, they're built into the LB. You can see the pretty typical level premium periods there, the 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. And on this product, we offer non-medical underwriting for coverage amounts. The lowest face amount is $25,000. There's a fantastic, there's not a lot out there in the marketplace that offer those smaller face amounts down to $25,000. And up to $1 short of $250,000, we offer this on a non-medical basis. It is underwritten, it's not simplified or guaranteed issue, but when I say non-medical, there'll be no paramed, no nurse comes to the house, and we don't collect any bodily fluids for the underwriting process. We underwrite it from the application itself and use other traditional methods, MVR and script check and, everything that an underwriter would normally look at. We just, like I said, don't require a paramed on these non-medical up to $1 short of $250,000. Or they can use the fully underwritten options up to $1 short of $1 million. That's where the product is capped at $999,999 is the maximum face amount that this Trendsetter LB can be written to. There is a monthly disability income rider available on it. That's an add-on, and it is an age last birthday style product. So you say, wow, these benefits, they're fantastic, but they have to cost a gazillion dollars, or what, 50% more, whatever. Here's a great example, and this is a real example here. On the left-hand side is our term without living benefits. We have our Trendsetter Super product, very competitive out there. And here it is, 35-year-old, 30-year term, $500,000 face amount or death benefit at preferred. We see the price difference here. Without living benefits, $49. The terminal illness, chronic illness, critical illness, of course, always with the death benefit, $52.94. So we're looking at a difference of $3.94 a month. The cost of a cup of Starbucks, or maybe a thimble of Starbucks, who knows. But for $4 a month, these extra benefits, this extra peace of mind for your client or prospect is, as it says, why not? Instead of why would I, spend the extra dollars. With those extra benefits, I think it's huge. The couple dollars a month certainly outweighs the benefit outweighs those few dollars. Now understand, as the client gets older, that gap may become a little bit wider, but still it's not the, like I said, 30, 40, 50% more. You're going to see it's a pretty small difference there for the benefits that and the peace of mind that's provided. So as we look at these accelerated death benefits, as I said, it's inherent with the policy. It's built right in for all risk class and issue ages. It's not, as far as that goes, only to a certain age and only certain risk classes and only for preferred or something like that. All risk classes, all ages that the policy is issued to. Of course, those issue ages change depending on the length of the term itself. The shorter the term, the older we'll issue it, of course. So I would certainly encourage you. I'm not going to go through each and every one from that standpoint, but we can certainly get you some product information as to maximum issue ages and so on. There's no additional cost. Like I said, it's not a rider. It's not an add-on. The maximum amount, lifetime amount that can be accelerated is up to $500,000 using these accelerated death benefits. And there's no additional underwriting for the living benefits or for the LB product. No additional hoops to jump through, if you will. Some of the hybrids out there have with an LTC rider or something, then they want to they underwrite for not just mortality, not for the life insurance side, but the morbidity. So that what are the chances that they're going to need this type coverage for long-term care? As it says here, no additional underwriting. It's underwritten as a life insurance product with the additional benefits. So let's take a little bit of look, or a quick look, I should say, on how to sell the Trendsetter LB. Where does it fit in? Well, a few things to keep in mind. The key message, as I said earlier, is life insurance for the living. It's that peace of mind. It's that benefits that's provided while you're here. Because as we all know in the market, when you buy a term insurance, if you don't die in those 10 years, 20 years, 30, whatever time frame you're talking about, you get to the end of it. Thank you very much. You lived past 20 years. Thank you, as an insurance company, thank you very much. And a lot of clients go, well, what is it doing for me? Other than the peace of mind, which obviously for others, I understand is huge. We all get that. But clients will say, we'll certainly come back to you with that. This is life insurance for the living. If these things are, if one of these illnesses would strike you, here's a way that you can access those dollars. You don't have to just die to get benefit out of, or your heirs to get benefit out of that, that policy. And the big thing, like I said, is giving them access to cash when they need it most in that time of need. So talking to new markets, like I said, some younger families, maybe there's somebody out there that you've already sold them a term policy or some other type of life insurance at some point in the past. It's a way to go back, and like I said, we'll look at a program that we have to sell additional insurance, but a second policy. Perhaps a younger family's had another child, a new job, a bigger house. Who knows? They need more coverage now. Here's a great way to start that conversation. Once again, when you sold them that, let's say, term product 2, 3, 4 years ago, however long ago it was, you sold them the best product that was available to you at the time, the best thing that was in the marketplace. Now this is the new best thing in the marketplace, and you can talk to your existing clients about that, and even, like I said, prospects. When they give you that, got some term insurance, thanks, I'm good. There's a new conversation to have with them. And also anyone that's in the business marketplace. If you're selling key person insurance, okay, it's fantastic. The business owner, they want to cover that key salesperson, or here's an exact example that I was working with an agent on. It was a small business, a small family-owned pharmacy, and the owner of the pharmacy was not the pharmacist. So 95% of his revenue came from behind the counter. When I say behind the counter, the aspirin and things that they sold out front, that was minimal compared to what was being sold as far as a prescription-wise. So the business owner was certainly concerned if something were to happen to that pharmacist, what would happen to his business? Well, as I talked to the agent about, and he went back to the business owner and said, well, that's fine. You have coverage if the pharmacist passes away, but what if they have a severe heart attack? What if they have a stroke? Well, then what are you going to do from that standpoint? Because they could be out of work, like I said, 30 days, 60 days. Meanwhile, that business, 95% of its revenue just went down the tubes, and perhaps the business as well. So keep the LB in mind if you're talking to a business owner, like I said, especially in that key person marketplace. I think it's an underutilized use of this product. And lead generation prospecting from your current book of business. And let's, oh, I thought it was the next slide, I apologize. We'll get to that in just a moment, how to go back through and what Transamerica offers in a program for additional insurance there. We see some financial impacts of illnesses. We see a severe heart attack could run upwards of $1 million. 20% of cancer patients younger than 65 delay or refuse treatment due to the high costs associated. And here's that Alzheimer's statistic I was talking about. The most expensive health problem in the U.S., costing families and society estimated somewhere between $157 billion and $215 billion a year. obviously an enormous problem here in the United States. Some sample costs of care. Our nursing, a private room nursing home, almost $98,000 a year. Assisted living, $44,500 a year. And a home health aide, somebody to come in and take care of them within their own home, we see $52,500 a year in costs for a home health aide. So let's take a look at an example. Let put some names and faces here with the product and kind of understand how it works. Here's Dale, 40 years old, standard non-smoker, $200,000, 30-year Trendsetter LB. 5 years after, at age 45, Dale has a serious heart attack. Life expectancy at that point, we review that case, look at it, 10.5 years is his new life expectancy. These triggers for a claim that we talked about earlier is something that's going to change their life expectancy. Obviously, a serious heart attack is going to reduce that life expectancy that we look at when we initially underwrite the product. Well, now he elects to accelerate 90%, the maximum amount that we'll allow, of his death benefit. So let's take a look. Over those 5 years, Dale's paid in just shy of $4,300 in premium. That serious heart attack occurs. He files a claim. We review it. We look at life expectancy. We offer Dale $115,418. You say, well, what happened to the rest? What that is a present value of his future death benefit. The other thing that's calculated into there is the severity of that occurrence and also future premiums. We take that out of that offer as well. And I say offer just because an insured, a client doesn't, just because they file a claim, we come back, offer him $115,418. He can take or leave that offer. They're not locked into it. No thanks. I don't want that. I'm going to do something else. Or the other thing is Dale says, you know what, I really only need about $50,000. I don't need all that money. Great. Well, we can make the adjustment there. They can take just a portion of those dollars. They do not have to take the maximum amount that we're offering, the 90% or whatever. They can take a smaller amount, leave the rest in death benefit. But let's say Dale does accept that $115,000. That remaining $20,000 in this case stays in force. The policy doesn't go away. It's a 30-year term was this situation. 5 years in was the occurrence. So for the next 25 years, he has at least a $20,000, really more a final expense kind of at that point, but still it stays in force. And we also prorate the premium. So in other words, for the next 25 years in this particular case, we only charge him for the amount of death benefit or the amount of the face amount of the product then. He doesn't continue to pay for $200,000 worth of coverage. When he no longer has $200,000, it's only $20,000. So we do prorate that. The other fantastic piece about it is that remaining death benefit can be converted. This product can be converted throughout the life of the term, same as any of our other term, but throughout the life of the term up to the client's age 70. Same thing applies to this remaining death benefit piece, is that can be converted as well, because obviously with a serious heart attack at this point, Dale perhaps is uninsurable, most likely. But so keep that little piece in mind as well, that it certainly could be converted at a later date. So as we look at some sales opportunities to existing clients, nearly half of Americans 55 or older expect to provide support to aging relatives and adult children. So this is certainly something that's a concern for them. Perhaps your clients have gotten to the age where you know, their children are out of the house. They don't have those small children concerns anymore to, you know, leave that a little more death benefit to help take care of some of that. But now they may be looking at, wow, my parents are needing that help. They didn't have the coverage that, or, you know, the long-term care, let's say, type coverage. And clearly, if your client is helping them or an adult child, there's once again a need from an existing client. And do they have enough coverage with their current policy? Like I said, some of these younger folks, maybe they had another child or a new job or something like that, that there's additional need there. On that line of do they have enough coverage, 27% of affluent Americans support either an adult child or parent. We just talked about that. 35% worry about having to care for a parent in their later years. We all talk about the you know, the baby boomers, and we know all those statistics and how many are turning 65 every day and so on and so forth. Those folks are starting to have to care for their parents that are now getting into their 70s perhaps and so on. And 1 in 4 Americans believe they have an inadequate amount of life insurance. So they already see that there's a need out there. And like I said, these hybrid type products are starting to become a little bit more, at least there's some talk about them in the marketplace. The folks have heard about them and are certainly interested in hearing and talking about them. Here's the prospecting lead generation opportunity that I was referring to, that my slide finally came up here. The TOP program. Of course, being an insurance company, we have to make everything into an acronym. So the TOP, Trans-America Opportunity Program, and what this provides for you is to market to existing client base, but it also works very well with prospects. And what this does is if the client has a fully underwritten policy, term policy, and it's been issued in the last 5 years, we will offer them same coverage at the same underwriting decision, preferred, whatever they were before. And you say, well, great, I've never sold Trans-America before. How does that help me? Currently 64 different companies, we will accept their underwriting decisions, like I said, as long as in that 5-year time frame. So all the major players, most of the mid-major players, all them, we will accept that underwriting, offer them more coverage at an expedited underwriting, no paramed, no, you know, we go that same process. It is underwritten. It's not guaranteed issue that we're going to give them that extra coverage, but it's once again just fill out an application. Now, we talked about going back to your current client base and offering this TOP program. Great. What if you meet a prospect and they say, you know what, I bought some term insurance a few years ago, you know, but I had another child or whatever that need might be. Say, great, you know what, let me tell you about the new type insurance that's out there available now. And with Trans-America, of course, A+ rated company, been in business well over 100 years, we can just fill out an application and get you another $250,000, let's say, at that preferred rating that Banner gave you, or you know, shame on you for not selling Trans the first time, but no, I'm just kidding. Banner or whoever it is, Genworth, you know, all the, like I said, 64 different companies out there, up to that $999,000 of additional coverage without the medical exam. One last thing to keep in mind about the TOP program: the current policy they have does not have to be in force. They say, wait a second, what's he talking about? You sold them, someone else sold them, another agent sold them within the last 5 years, a term policy, all that qualifies, but they say, you know what, I let it lapse. I couldn't afford it, I lost my job, I changed my banking information, whatever happened, the policy lapsed. Great. We don't care if it's in force. We only care that in the last 5 years it was underwritten and issued. So there's a great opportunity to talk to that prospect and just go, hey, you know what, we can just fill out the application. I can get you that preferred rating that you had before or whatever it was before. We'll get you that $250,000 put back in place, but now with a living benefits added to that. Makes it an easy process. Let's fill out an application, sign here, press hard, we'll move on and get you that coverage back in place, get you that peace of mind back in place. And as it says there, it is fully commissionable. It does not affect that in any way. So anyone that was been with Transamerica for any period of time, we had a Trendsetter Express product. We are discontinuing that particular product. It was a non-medical, had that same under $250,000 non-medical option. The Trendsetter LB offers the same non-medical options. The terminal illness was on the Express product. Of course, it's still on LB. Still our income protection option, which allows the insured to decide how the beneficiary is going to take that money. In other words, if you have an insured that's concerned about a spendthrift spouse or adult child or someone like that, they can then choose. They get a lump sum up front. You get a monthly payment from anywhere from 5 to 25 years, and then another the chunk at the end. So that's still available on all of our products. But now, of course, with LB, we had chronic, critical, those ADBs, or accelerated advanced death benefits. So the 5 important things to remember from today: powerful offering to your clients. Like I said, it's life insurance for the living. It's access to cash when they need it most during their lifetime for chronic, critical, terminal illnesses. The non-medical option, up to $250,000, or a dollar short of $250,000. Excellent if clients concerned about doing a paramed, taking a blood draw, things like that. There's a minimal price difference. We saw that on the slide, a minimal price difference for the additional benefits that are involved. The critical illness piece is truly a game changer out there, only available on our Trendsetter LB. And we did talk about prospecting to your existing book of business using that POP, the Transamerica Opportunity Program, to both existing clients and to perhaps prospects, a way to make a little bit of an easier sale without having to go, like I said, back through the paramed process and so on. So as we look at some prospecting or how you go about speaking to your clients or prospects, we have a pre-approach letters. There's a couple different versions of it. They're pre-approved pre-approach. So if you're mailing something out or you want to mail something out, these are available on our website, our agentnetinfo.com. Once you're appointed with us, you can go in there and pull that pull that down. You plug in your information to it. Just the language of it is what's approved, but then you put your information, call me at, those type of things. There's plenty of consumer flyers, consumer brochures. There's that top toolkit. We can certainly, once you get into AgentNet Info, you can pull that down, or we can certainly get that out to you. And a life sales mobile app that's available out there as well. So as we look at, these are some producer or agent guides, complete guide, flyers. There's an FAQ piece for just a quick hit, kind of get yourself up to speed a little bit more, and that without reading every last detail in the product guide. That FAQ piece answers the majority of the questions. I think it's a great piece. Underwriting guide, and if you email market to existing clients or whatever, we have a couple of videos that have been put together, professionally done. They're fantastic looking. They're out on YouTube, so they're consumer friendly. But you could send a link out, and this, especially the one on the left, there's a couple of those. That's Mark Steuben, one of our national sales director. It's hit his family personally, and he tells his personal story. He doesn't pound product over your head. He tells his story about how his dad had a severe heart attack. They had to spend down their dollars because this occurred before this product was even available. I forgot the time frame, 7, 8 years ago, something like that. But Mark tells his story. There's another one that's of another gentleman, Lance Stallings. He's another sales director with us. Same thing happened, I believe it was his sister had a stroke in her late 30s, how that affected their family. Same thing. They're about 3 or 4 minute videos, nothing, too long. But if you email market, you could send that link, and it just makes people, it brings it home a little more personal. It's a personal family. It's not just, hey, look at this product, pound it over their head, and this way it kind of makes them feel a little bit more, like I said, personal. Okay. There's our living benefit solution. We talked about the chronic illness, critical illness, terminal illness, how all these pieces fit together with that death benefit protection, the peace of mind that I said that it's going to provide to your clients, that if all these pieces, while they're alive, if any of these things should occur, dollars they can access from that death benefit. As I said, always have a death benefit. It will be out there if the worst should happen. It's a huge sales opportunity. I'd encourage you, don't be left behind and let someone else or let a client walk away and hear about living benefits, perhaps from another agent or something. Certainly talk to them about these. There are concerns out there. They are worried that these things are going to happen to them. And I think that is all I have for my presentation today. If there is a question out there, I haven't seen anything pop up on the chat yet, so no one's typed anything in there. Zach, are you, or Kurt, excuse me.
Eric,
yep.
Yeah, what a great job. We've had a number of agents on the line today. I really hope that they were able to absorb all that information. I mean, you talked about how great this product is. You gave us some great sales ideas. A reason, Humana has just finished AEP, annual enrollment period, and they've had an opportunity to meet a lot of new members. And what a great reason to go back to them and talk about this product. And you've offered some great ideas. I think they have a demographic that is of an older population, so this would really fit in well. You mentioned those statistics, those alarming statistics about heart attacks and cancer, and those with so many people turning 60 every day, those statistics are only going to grow, and that need is going to get larger and larger, and those agents that you, as Humana agents, have a great opportunity to really help your members out.
I agree with that 100%. I would love to see what those statistics 5 years from now, every 30 seconds, if that number comes down, to every 25, every 20 seconds, alarmingly, and not that I want to see those numbers come down, but I'm with you. I think that trend is certainly moving that direction.
And and I mentioned the fact that we have so many older people turning 60. We also mentioned the fact that Humana has a lot of members who are in that age category. It's not to discount or even ignore the fact that this is also good for a younger population. I mean, just in my life alone, I have seen it. I have a neighbor across the street whose sister just recently became pregnant, and also just months thereafter became diagnosed with cancer. I have a neighbor on the other side, a good friend of mine, cancer. It's, you think these things are going to happen when you get older. Not necessarily the case. So be mindful. Just talking to the Humana agents out there, to be mindful of all the opportunities with all your members and their children. So
that is a great lead generation, Kurt. Like you said, their children that may be in their 30s or 40s. The young lady that I spoke about earlier with the holistic vitamin C boost was 37 when she was diagnosed, stage 4 breast cancer, pregnant, the same exact scenario. So yeah, it does happen. I have 2 friends at less than 40 years old that have had strokes. Another gentleman that passed away at 39 of a heart attack. all good friends of mine. So
yeah. Well, again, I really appreciate this was very important information. Really well done, Eric. You know, Transamerica is a carrier that Humana is closely associated with. It's one of our preferred carriers. I would admonish everybody out there who is not contracted with Transamerica to do so. They have low face amounts, very competitive. They have a great range of products for your clients, final expense, universal life, of course this term product now with living benefits. So if you have any questions, I want to make sure that you know you have access to Partners Advantage sales team. We're dedicated to serving you and making sure that we can sell life insurance easy, efficiently. Our phone number here at 888-251-5525, extension 804, and anybody here in the sales staff will be able to help you out. We have a webinar again coming up on Monday. It's going to be about submitting new business. So that'll be a very important webinar to get onto to help you understand how to submit business efficiently, again, making your life easier. But again, Eric, thank you so much. I'm really glad we had this opportunity to have this product, the LB, introduced to our Humana agents.
great.